hi. Just came from downstairs where we have our accountants at the Majority Report. And they were telling me what the situation is with YouTube. And we wanted to update you as to why we still need your support on our Patreon page. And that's because some of you are seeing ads in front of our YouTube videos. And it's true. Some of them have come back. As you know, back in March now, I guess, or April, our ad placement was completely wiped out. We had basically 10% of our views were getting ads, whereas it used to be in March, in February, and January, closer to 65 to 75% of our views were getting ads. Well, some of those ads have come back, and it's true of some other channels as well, but not nearly as many as we had before. And on top of that, the type of ads that we're getting have a much lower CPM. So in other words, we're getting less ads on our videos, and the ads we're getting less money for. And that's why we're continuing our Patreon account. We don't know if this is the new normal. And frankly, YouTube is not inclined to tell us. We're not the biggest channel. I don't even know if the biggest channels are being told as to what the new normal is, but this appears to be it. So where we got $1 3 months ago, we're now getting about 40 cents. That's better than getting a dime, but we are still needing your support. So you can head over to our Patreon channel, or maybe you're at our Patreon page rather now, but either way, give a couple of bucks a month, and that would really help us continue producing as many videos as we do on a daily basis. And we want to produce more, frankly. We were geared up to do so, and then, well, so now it's not necessarily an ad apocalypse. It's more of like an ad sort of apocalypse. Thanks for your support. Really appreciate it.
How come you're never around? I miss you, everything now. Mama, leave the food on the stove. Leave your car in the middle of the road. This happy family with everything now. We'll turn the speakers up till they break. 'Cause every time you smile, it's a fake. Stop pretending you got everything now. I need everything now. I want it. I can't live without. I can't live without. Fill every room in my house. It's still shit I couldn't live without. I need it. I can't live without. Everything now.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
If I get the feeling you've been cheated.
It is Wednesday, July 19th, 2017. My name is Sam Seder. This is the four-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, repeal and replace dead. Trump pushing for repeal only and pretending he's not a Republican. Meanwhile, the press also pretends Trump voters are different from Republicans. Mitch McConnell still very, very lonely. And the coming Republican debt default should be here before Halloween. Over the summer, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is going to be facing off against the Trump administration. And EPA's toxic office chief, a biostitute and Bible science writer. Meanwhile, Trump Juniors are miserable as told in People magazine. We will tell you all of the tidbits of the sad, sad story.
Matt really calibrates your board.
Meanwhile, new dishes inside Trump world. And speaking of Trump, he had an impromptu meeting with his boy toy, Vlad Putin.
I think you're confusing who is toy.
At a G20 summit. I don't know how nefarious it is as much as it is just terrifying that he is alone talking to anybody.
Yes, Angela Merkel is too. We already established this. When you give us codes,
Exactly.
you know, half them, Mattis is having them. Whole chain of command ruined.
Vladimir is so out of his depth here.
All this
Merkel's a 2?
and more
Oh, Michael?
on today's program. It
I'm
wasn't
in
Michael
character,
is just
though.
in character.
No,
He
I
can't.
think
He,
a
I've heard
solid-
him
No,
say.
I thought it was generous, like on the part of Putin. Not
Well, I think
Michael,
it's-
but
He's just
more
going
the-
along with
I
him.
think it's more the joke that Putin's just tired of hearing it, and he just wants to establish a
yeah,
number
got
and
that
move
part.
on.
Just impressed by Putin's generosity.
I'm less moved by that
probably
meeting
less
that they had in
misogynist.
front of the G20. I just don't think. Aside from just the idea of Donald Trump speaking to any world leader without someone there to hold his hand,
Got it under control.
I'm a little bit concerned about. But
Right, like
more
you don't
relevant,
want him meeting with like the Prime Minister of Antigua.
right?
It's
Exactly.
just like a general principle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
More interesting to me is that eighth guy who is apparently in the meeting with Donald Trump Jr., someone who is has been accused. I want to be careful when I say this. Has been accused of massive amounts of money laundering
Well, this is
for
ridiculous.
for Russian real estate interests. I mean,
It's so weird how that keeps popping up.
anyways, we will get to all of that. I want to start off. We're going to get to. There's a couple of things. I've got a couple of bees in my bonnet. One, I want to just give a full accounting of how the repeal and replace fell apart, because it's going to be instructive. Now, there is another vote that's supposedly happening next week, contrary to our good friend Doug, the constitutionalist who doesn't know anything about the Constitution, and Trump supporter who doesn't seem to know anything about Trump, who argued yesterday that this is exactly what Trump wanted. He wanted this bill to go down, and because he wants Trump Obamacare to fail. Donald Trump has begged Mitch McConnell for a week before they vote on a full repeal so that he can meet with senators to convince them to do what apparently he doesn't want to have happen done.
But do you think that any time, sometimes when, and I don't know if Doug is still suspended from Twitter because of Matt, but do you think that sometimes when Trump says people are saying, he's specifically thinking of Doug?
It's possible.
He might have seen something Doug tweeted.
People are saying that
How
I don't
great
want
is
to.
that?
we will get to the other thing. The bee in my bonnet. I got bumped from doing Hayes last night. All well and good, but I had to read this piece in the New Yorker, which I had actually decided to read, had seen before, but I hadn't quite gotten to it yet. And you're going to see this increasingly, and you're going to see it from Republicans, and you're going to see it from the center. And maybe you'll even see it from the left. Everybody's got an agenda here in trying to argue that Trump supporters are somehow unique from Republican voters. But there's a nickname that I have coined for Trump's base. And I call them Republican voters. We will talk more about that as we go forward.
I call them not good guys.
Not good guys. Meanwhile, let me just do this story, which I had teased yesterday, but I haven't gotten to. The private student loan business seems to have a bit of a problem. And I got to say, I'm enjoying this. Now, I would rather just a broad jubilee as a matter of policy, but I think it's highly beneficial for there to be a de facto jubilee. Now, you know there's almost $1 trillion worth of student loans. Maybe it's over $1 trillion. And I'm not quite sure how much of that is private student loans. I think it's about $100 billion, maybe 10%, maybe a little bit more. Maybe it's $150 billion, somewhere in there. And as of now, it appears at least within $5 billion worth of loans, the private loan companies, which have been which own these loans now, have run into the same problem that we saw during the mortgage crisis. And this was just an element of the mortgage crisis. It wasn't it wasn't a cause of the mortgage crisis, although it was a handmaiden, if you will. You'll recall that what was going on in the mortgage business was that all of these loans were being bundled up and then securitized so they could be sold in a secondary market. And then they were chopped up more, and then the subsidiary securities were made from these first securities. And it got to the point where there was no way to go in the mortgage business. If you own a lien on a house because you have financed it, you've got to go file that with a county clerk, literally the county clerk. Well, they couldn't do this and keep selling the loan over and over again, so they developed their own system called MERS. It stands for something I can't remember off the top of my head what it is. And but they did their own system despite the laws that exist about the way you're supposed to transfer ownership of these notes. So when people's homes were foreclosed upon, they would go to court, and the banks or the entities that own the loans had to basically have robo-signers, fake affidavits saying, we own this loan, I've seen it, blah, blah, blah. And the courts were not terribly sympathetic to homeowners, frankly. They allowed this to slide. Well, they're not allowing this to slide in the student loan business. So what's happened is judges have already dismissed, according to the New York Times, dozens of lawsuits against former students, wiping out their debt because the documents proving who owns the loans are missing. This is taking place in most of the loans come from the National Collegiate Student Loan Trusts. And what I find a sort of funny legal filing as I read this story. National Collegiate lawyers warned in a recent filing, as news of the servicing issues and the trust's inability to produce the documents needed to foreclose on loans spread. In other words, because we can't prove that we own these loans, and as news of that spreads, let's say through somebody doing a podcast, the likelihood of more defaults rise. Because people out there might go, hey, wait a second. I got a private student loan from National Collegiate Student Loan Trust. I wonder if they have my papers.
I'm going to cover this again tomorrow.
National Collegiate is an umbrella name for 15 trusts that hold 800,000 private student loans totaling $12 billion. More than $5 billion of that debt is in default, according to court filings. I mean, who knows? People may just... Now, I don't know if you can ask for proof that someone has your loan or how you go about doing that, but I'm sure one could Google it and find it. It tells the story of, Times tells the story of a woman who was the first in her family to go to college. She took out private loans to finance her studies. She had trouble following the fine print. I didn't really understand things like interest rates. Everybody tells you to go to college, get an education, and everything will be okay. So that's what I did. I mean, I have a year of law school. I was raised by a dad who made me actually write contracts when I borrowed $15 from him.
Oh, Jesus. There's just so much clicking into place right now.
And I don't understand these documents. And I don't understand these dynamics very well. Ms. Watson made some of her payments on her loan but fell behind when her daughter got sick. Because, of course, we live in a country where if you get sick, it should mean financial ruin. She had to quit her job as an executive assistant. She now works as a nurse's aide with more flexible hours but a smaller paycheck that barely covers her family's expenses. When National Collegiate sued her, the paperwork it submitted was a mess. This is according to her lawyer of the New York Legal Assistance Group. And she said some of the loans it charged her with having, she never took out. When a judge in New York City Civil Court saw all the documents, dismissed 4 lawsuits against Ms. Watson, the trust failed to establish the chain of title on Mrs. Watson's loans, Miss Watson's loans. You'll recall David Dayan wrote a book about this in the mortgage industry entitled Chain of Title. Lawsuits have been tossed out in New Hampshire, Ohio, and Texas. Often what happens, these trusts wins their lawsuit automatically because the loaner doesn't show up. And then they're saddled with this. They can garnish their Social Security. They can garnish all sorts of different things. So always question these things, folks. And if you have a private student loan, might be worth to find out who owns it. I'm not saying anything. I don't think it's a contract. I don't know if it's legal to encourage people to break their contract. I'm not talking to anybody individual. I'm just telling a story I read in the New York Times. So
I read a lot of stories.
yeah, I read a lot of some people say.
There's a lot of stories, and I think, frankly, we need to figure out what the hell is going on.
All right, let's figure out what the hell is going on with repeal and replace is dead for the time being. It's very hard for me to believe that they can leave it here like this because it is such a devastating loss for the president, for Mitch McConnell. But I don't know that they have any choice. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that is frontline Wikipedia when they look back on your legislative career. Here, just to remind you, is Donald Trump. 9 months ago, October 25th, Sanford, Florida, surrounded by, there's even a doctor, or at least a guy who plays one on TV, standing behind him with a stethoscope. I don't know if that's actually Donald Trump's actual doctor there just to take his pulse. But
He's better groomed.
he's better.
Can we put that guy in a doctor's outfit and the stethoscope? He just looks like a doctor.
And here is Donald Trump telling everyone his plans for health care.
My first day in office, I'm going to ask Congress to put a bill on my desk getting rid of this disastrous law and replacing it with reforms that expand choice, freedom, affordability. You're going to have such great health care at a tiny fraction of the cost, and it's going to be so easy.
So easy. Meanwhile, Donald Trump now is talking about healthcare failure in terms of the Republicans and the Democrats. And I was over here just doing my job by just waiting, golfing, looking at fire trucks. Big, big fire trucks. Where's the fire? That is a quote, incidentally.
You repeated it.
Where's the fire? I'll put it out.
And like I say, despite the fact that some people will tell you this is his plan all along, to have this long, protracted battle that is very highly embarrassing to him and to those people he is looking upon to pass his agenda, the president has continuing this charade by inviting all 52 Republican senators to the White House for lunch today, Wednesday, to see if he can revive the Republican plans to repeal and replace the health care law. I can't wait. Can't wait to hear the leak that comes out of this lunch.
Hey, how's everyone doing? Who would have ever thought it would have been this hard? By the way, I thought the Senate bill was pretty mean. Mitch, very mean. Not good.
You did a bad job.
You did a bad job. And at the same time, Susan Collins is a horrible woman.
All right, well, let's get to this. Let's get to this.
Bleeding out of her. Well, I guess she doesn't bleed anymore because she's ancient.
Oh my God! No.
That's not right. All right.
It's just wrong.
So Rush Limbaugh.
You're not wrong, Kelly. It's wrong.
Understand the scurrying that is happening here. And we've got a clip of Sean Hannity doing his, 45th version over the past 15, maybe 10 years of I've left the Republican Party. I'm an independent. This is the last straw. No more chances. One more chance. That's it.
I'm a constitutional conservative before I'm a Republican.
Right, exactly. But before we get there, Rush Limbaugh has figured out exactly who is responsible for the failure of this Republican repeal and replace. And of course, it's the ladies.
Now we find out the Republican caucus in the Senate is infected with essentially leftist members. Collins, Murkowski, Capito. These three female leftists in the Republican caucus are running the Senate, not Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell is not running the Senate. These three women are running the Senate. The conservative Republicans in the Senate are not running the Senate. Three liberal women who call themselves Republicans are running the Senate.
Yes. Now, what's interesting about his comment that these three liberal infecting women run the Senate is that the reality is that there were a man and a woman who had said that they weren't going to vote for it. Rand Paul, a conservative, according to him, and Susan Collins. And then the bill collapsed, not because of Capito, who was certainly going to Capito, and not because of Murkowski, who also hadn't announced anything publicly, because she was also going to Capito. What are you talking about? the bill died when arch-conservative Mike Lee of Utah and conservative but also fairly pragmatic Jerry Moran of Kansas joined together and said they could not support the current bill. That's when it collapsed. And the story of Moran in particular saying that he couldn't support the current bill is very instructive and is, as far as I can tell, a direct result of, you want to call it the resistance of activists who fought against this bill. Dave Weigel, July 6th, in the Washington Post, writing on behalf of the CIA, maybe. Weigel was actually in Kansas reporting. He was at a town hall with Senator Jerry Moran, which was the first town hall meeting since coming out against the then version of the Senate's health care bill. He didn't want the legislation jammed through on a party line vote, but he would not necessarily vote against it. In other words, he was one of those waverers at the time. And there was a bunch of them after the first version. Remember? McConnell had to go back. And he said he'd met people who tell me they're better off because the Affordable Care Act was passed, but he knew plenty of people were hurting too. This is a guy back in 2015 who was vehemently against Obamacare. But he had this town hall meeting. Planned Parenthood transported at least 20 people from the Kansas City suburbs. The city's chapter of Indivisible did the same. The American Association for Retired People and Alliance for Healthy Kansas made more calls, driving loyal voters to Palco, where the town hall took place. The result was a polite but heated round of questions that Moran occasionally chose not to answer. A 59-year-old vet asked if it was time for Medicare for all. Moran had to wait for the applause to die down and then moved on to the topic of Medicaid funding. Moran largely allowed the skeptics of the Republican bill to frame the whole conversation. For all 90 minutes, a woman named Yanith Porch, 46, stood behind the senator holding up a sign with caricatures of Republican leaders and the warning, "When you lose your health care, remember who took it away." They didn't try and move her. This took place in a place called Rooks County, which gave Donald Trump a 73-point landslide over Hillary Clinton. Moran beat a token Democratic opponent by 79 points, and still he was afraid. He said he did not describe the task facing Republicans as repeal. It was now repeal, repair, replace whatever language people are using. In 2015, he said this: Obamacare was rammed through Congress on a partisan basis in the face of significant public opposition. He said he ran in 2015 on full repeal. After the town hall meeting, Moran told reporters the version of the GOP's bill that he opposed put too much of Medicaid at risk.
This is Susan Collins. Mitch, we need to seize the means of production. I won't vote for any bill that doesn't criminalize the insurance industry.
Now, it is unclear whether or not
Collins.
Senator Jerry Moran is a female.
He's having a gender operation.
Meanwhile, Mike Lee also jettisoned the bill, and this is sort of fascinating. Ted Cruz, remember Ted Cruz had this amendment, right, which basically said it's the freedom of choice amendment. And that is insurers can sell Obamacare compliant policies in the individual market on the exchanges Or I should say, in the individual market, there would be no exchanges. And if they do, they are also allowed to sell a non-compliant, a non-Obamacare compliant policy. So in other words, one that has lifetime caps, one that has annual caps, one that doesn't deal with pre-existing conditions, one that doesn't require essential health benefits, et cetera, which would presumably be much cheaper because, of course, it's barely insurance. But there became such fear about the implications of that amendment that they made one tweak to it before it came out as part of the bill. Kimberly Leonard wrote about this. I'm not sure in which magazine. Kimberly Leonard. But she wrote about this and laid it out. And what that one change tweaked was that insurers, even though they could sell different policies, they had to put all of the people into the same risk pool. Because there was a concern about adverse selection where she was in the U.S. News and World Report. There was a concern about adverse selection where if you had an Obamacare compliant policy and a non-compliant policy, all the healthy people who presume that they're not going to need health insurance are going to go for the non-compliant one because they're never going to need their health insurance. They may be wrong, but that's they're going to look that way on actuarial tables. And the sicker and older people are going to go for the compliant policy because they know they're going to need their health insurance. And for insurance companies to be able to sell the cheaper version, they need to keep those two risk pools separate. But the tweak said there'll be one single risk pool. Now, as you try and wrap your heads around that, understand that you're not the only one who couldn't figure that out. Most health insurance experts who were aware of that provision were like, we have no idea how to do that. We don't know how to put everybody into the same risk pool, but sell different policies, such dramatically different policies to them. The American Academy of Actuaries released a paper saying that creating a single risk pool is unworkable because insurers would have difficulty administering different sets of rules and premium rates for customers that are very different while keeping them in the same risk pool. And this is what Mike Lee objected to. He knew that this was either a disaster or just a BS move. And he also dropped out, crashing the bill. So that's the story of how repeal and replace died, ladies and gentlemen. A combination of right-wing lunacy, right? The Lees and the Pauls fundamentally disagree in the idea that government has any type of responsibility in assuring that people have legitimate access to health care in every situation. And then from senators who were just afraid of people who believe those things, who believe that, hey, man, we're living in a civilized society, the wealthiest society in the world, in the history of the world. People should not have to quit their jobs because their kids get sick. They shouldn't have to default on their student loans. They shouldn't have to foreclose on their houses. They shouldn't have to declare bankruptcy. They shouldn't have to become amateur accountants. They shouldn't have to be stuck in jobs they don't want to be stuck in. They shouldn't have this source of stress any more than we expect in a civilized country not to have to worry about pirates raiding us. It's just we've replaced the boogeyman.
Pirates have actually done a lot for the economy. And maybe if you had some of their entrepreneurial instincts and you weren't just so committed. And by the way, you talk about faith. I mean, you need to have faith in it. Don't you believe in Yahweh or whatever you guys call it before you lend money to people and charge an exorbitant interest rate? And that's why you keep that little thing on your head or whatever. I mean, but at a certain point, you just got to believe. And Mitch McConnell came to me, and I could see that theoretically there might be a scenario where a kid might be able to get a slightly more affordable inhaler. And I was just like, I can't vote for this. And he was showing me all the things. You know, people, it's going to make them bankrupt. People are going to lose their health care. I said, that's great, but I'm still seeing this inhaler line, so I can't get on board.
I mean, this is all it took. It took Jerry Moran. You know, Mike Lee, I don't think he could have jumped into the pool alone. He needed to find somebody, and Jerry Moran jumped in with him because of the people who showed up at those town hall meetings. Literally hundreds of people showing up and thousands who wrote to him. Maybe 10,000, I don't know, 50,000, maybe 5,000, maybe 3,000. A drop in the bucket crashed this. A drop in the bucket. This is the thing that people don't understand about politics when it's not about elections. The dirty little secret about this, and I just remember having to explain this to people who were like, you're preaching to the choir. Guess what? It's the choir who determines this stuff. After the elections, it's the choir who change the trajectory of broad policies in this country. So congratulations to all of you who wrote letters, made phone calls, went to town halls, etc. Meanwhile, Sean Hannity is sort of arguing he's going to leave the Republican Party for, I believe, like the 30th time in maybe 10 years. Yeah, I mean, if you listen to his radio, the Conservative in Exile movement, he made a big deal about becoming an independent, not a Republican registered. He's probably still registered Republican. I mean, who knows? But the bottom line is, like, he's stuck with a problem where he has to complain about the Republicans. He's not taking the Rush Limbaugh attack of blaming the women who've infected his party because Hannity is very sensitive about how poorly he does with women in ratings.
Rush needs to think more about that stuff with some of his travel schedule.
But here is Hannity talking about how this is all the fault of those Republicans over there, as if he's not been one of those people calling for these victories.
Pay very close attention. If you're in the D.C. swamp, I have a very important message for you, congressional Republicans. I and so many of us in the country, we have run out of patience with you. You are the do-nothing GOP lawmakers. And up to now, to be very, very honest, and it's really sad, you're pretty useless. And all you have now is excuses and broken promises. Remember 2010, vote for us, give us the House, we'll get rid of Obamacare. Well, which the American people did. You got the House in 2010. In 2014, you said, give us the House and the Senate. And we delivered. The people delivered. And then in 2016, you said, give us the House and Senate and the White House, and then once and for all, we'll repeal Obamacare. Okay, let's remind this audience exactly what they were promised so there's no ambiguity here. Take a look.
There's only one way to truly fix Obamacare. Only one way. And that's a full repeal. A full repeal. That's been our goal from the start. That's our goal now. And we plan to achieve it.
It's clear that any serious attempt to improve our health care system must begin with full repeal and replacement of Obamacare. Amish and I remain fully committed to fighting on behalf of the people of Arizona.
Repealing Obamacare's poorly crafted and misguided mandates and replacing the law with a fiscally responsible reform bill that contains costs and provides more choices is the best path forward.
You can't repair this monstrosity. You got to tear it down and start all over again.
How do you get to that point, though?
When they lose elections.
And do you think that's the key, that the Republicans have to take the Senate, and from that point you can have a different strategy?
Yeah, the ones who survive in 2016 or up in 2016 are going to have a different attitude.
There you go.
You know, this was the Republicans' big chance, and up till now they've completely blown it.
Up to now.
Since 2011, remember the Republican-controlled House? They have voted a whopping 68 times to repeal, defund, delay parts of Obamacare. Guess what? I guess it now turns out they were all phony show votes because they never used the power of the purse. Where is the decisive action? You know, was this all a big game, a giant fraud perpetrated on the American people? Well, now you Republicans, you face a moment of truth. This is a tipping point.
This is a tipping point. I've been to this place. Was this all a fraud? Yeah, yes, it was. In fact, you were part of it. Just FYI.
This is Senator Susan Collins. We need to replace Obamacare with a nationalized system. What do HMOs and insurance companies bring to the table? Mitch, don't walk away from me. I'm infecting you. Can't get away from us. We're the leftist female caucus. Bernie's a total wuss bag compared to us.
Let me just talk about this because I just got to get this out of my system. So there's a piece in the New Yorker magazine. Well, let me just start with this one. This is from Wall Street Journal, and it's written by a guy, Jason L. Riley, who's from the Manhattan Institute. A pro-immigration Republican type guy. So clearly against the vast majority of the Republican Party. But he will still promote this fiction entitled The President's Base versus the Republican Party. There is no difference between Donald Trump's base and the Republican Party. People got to get this through their head. There are people who may have come out to vote for Trump who hadn't voted in the past. And there were certainly some people who voted for Obama that voted for Trump. And that's a very important cohort. It's also, relatively speaking, an infinitesimally small cohort. It's even understating it to say the vast majority of people who voted for Donald Trump voted for Mitt Romney and voted for John McCain. Even saying the vast majority is an understatement. And this guy writes as if this is not the Republican Party. The GOP's inability to scrap Obamacare this week means, among other things, that President Trump will end his first 6 months in office without a major legislative accomplishment. And one question is, how much his supporters care? This is the big thing now. The Republicans don't seem, not the Republicans. The Trump voters don't seem to care about legislative victories. They don't seem to care about policy. NBC News polling gives the president a 40% job approval rating among all voters, while 55% disapprove. In counties Mr. Trump won last year, however, voters still back him by 50 to 46%. In other words, in Republican counties, they still support Donald Trump. And he goes on to... Look, his disapproval rating has climbed 5 points to 58%. Yet among Republican voters, his favorability has barely budged and remains above 80%. But he's going to forget that. He's going to forget that number he just put out. 41% of all voters believe the Trump campaign helped Russia to try and influence the election. But that belief is shared by fewer than 1 in 10 Republican voters. The average Trump supporter's concern about Russia roughly matches his concern about president's unreleased tax returns or witching hour tweets. And then he goes on and he does the little shift. I spoke to someone from the Brookings Institute. And there's blue-collar jobs in traditional primary and secondary industries are gradually disappearing. Mr. Trump's ability to appeal to these voters is the reason he won and the reason his base isn't abandoning him. His base doesn't give a crap about that because his base is exactly the same people who voted for Mitt Romney, who said those jobs are never coming back. Exactly the same people. And exactly the same people as John McCain, who voted for John McCain. There's a sliver of people. And we're not even sure if they voted for Trump as much as voted against Hillary Clinton for a myriad of reasons. Emily Ekins, a Cato Institute scholar, is part of a politically diverse team of academics and pollsters in the process of analyzing the 2016 election, told me on Monday that Trump supporters are less concerned about his policy agenda and more interested in having someone who understands them occupy the Oval Office. In other words, Trump voters are tribal. In other words, Republican voters are tribal. Now, this isn't to say that Democratic voters, at least a certain amount of them, are not tribal. But Democratic voters seem far more interested in a broad range of issues. I think there's a lot of evidence to support the idea that Trump's main appeal was validating the fears and concerns of a certain segment of Americans who felt they were being ignored by elites in the media, elites in politics, elite Republicans. Yeah. Nobody was articulating that Barack Obama wasn't an American citizen. We'll vote for Romney because at least he went to New York and kissed Trump's ring, who was the chief invalidator of President Obama. This is of little comfort to Republicans in Congress. Unlike the president, GOP lawmakers must face voters next year and desperately want some legislative victories to campaign on. Well, he probably does too. But when they vote for those Republicans, it's going to be for the same thing, right? To vote against those San Francisco Democrats who don't live in their district. And this isn't just a right-winger who's trying to maintain the credibility of the Republican Party. Peter Hessler in The New Yorker, how Trump is transforming rural America. And it's all about this county in Colorado where people are unshook, where they voted for Trump and they organized for Trump. And things galvanized when they had the deplorable there. And people admitted that, like, I just like the fact that he gets up every day and he tweets out and he slams the media. And I wasn't swayed by the Access Hollywood tape. And
might have been enhanced by the Access Hollywood tape.
Yeah. And the descriptions of inner-city crime seem cartoonish to urban residents, but not to rural voters. Trump won nearly 65% of the vote in Mesa County. Everything he said activated people to vote for him, almost 65%. And they're still with him. And we need to understand this. We're going to write this up in the New Yorker because all you East Coast and West Coast liberal elites, you need to understand this. 65% of them almost voted for this guy. What's going on? Well, in 2008, nearly 64% of them voted for John McCain. And in 2012, 64.5% of them voted for Mitt Romney. In fact, that is more than the 64.1, which is not nearly 65%, if we're going to split hairs. Mitt Romney beat Donald Trump in this district, in this county. Barack Obama got 32% of the vote in 2008. He got 34% of it in 2012. And Hillary Clinton, if there's any political story to be taken out of this, Hillary Clinton lost 4 percentage points to Gary Johnson. Period. End of story. That's the only change that took place over the course of 3 elections. That people really didn't like Hillary Clinton there, and she lost about 15% of her support to Gary Johnson. Didn't even go to Donald Trump. Didn't even go to Donald Trump. Mitt Romney outperformed Donald Trump in Mesa County, Colorado. The idea of writing this piece, I mean, it's interesting, but the piece should not be what Donald Trump has done to Mesa County or how Trump is transforming rural America. To the extent that that area was transformed, it dropped in support for the Republican candidate by 0.4%, by 0.04%. No, this should be the story of, holy crap, look at these Republican voters, completely exposed. They would vote for John McCain. They would vote for Mitt Romney. They would vote for Donald Trump. They would vote for anybody with an R on their last name because of how much they hate Democrats, how much they hate liberal elites, whatever it is. How little they care about policy. It doesn't matter. That's the real story. They're not transforming anything. He's exposing the Republican Party for what it is. You want to do a story? You go to Wisconsin, you go to Michigan, you go to Pennsylvania. What changed there? And the story very well may be voter suppression and a Democratic candidate who had too much baggage. But this is like the equivalent of the what is it? The National Review going to Brooklyn in 2009 say they're Obama voters. Still support him.
The transformation of Brooklyn.
It's unbelievable. This place is just
Park
like
Slope
you can
voters
just see the
vote
way.
For
Obama. You should just see the way they talk to each other now. It's all very careful not to be offensive with their language, and it's just bizarre. Can you imagine that piece?
It sounds pretty funny.
I just had to get that off my chest.
Sam, this is Senator Susan Collins from Maine. You know why I opposed Obama?
Because you're a lady.
I thought, well, that's
Sorry.
very demeaning of my work as a revolutionary, but I thought the way that he threw Reverend Wright under the bus was offensive. And as I say in my state, Ungawa, black power. Healthcare for all, nationalize the means of production. Me and Lisa and Nancy have our little Marx and Engels reading group, and Mitch is very afraid of us.
We're going to take a quick break, head into the fun half. Folks, remember, it is your membership that makes this show possible. We cannot do this show without your support. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. And as a way of saying thank you, we give you hours and hours of more content every day. You can listen to one part and not listen to the other. You can do whatever
So many hours.
So many hours.
So many more hours than you could
Also,
ever.
you'll recall that we are the 4-time award-winning program. If you
Podcast.
go to podcastawards.com right now, you can help make us a 5-time winner of the Podcast Awards. Go to podcastawards.com. You got to register. You got to give me your email address. And nominate us. The voting won't start for another couple of weeks, but we need more nominations.
We're going to win so much, it'll make you sick.
It's going to make you so sick.
So sick.
So nauseous. Also, justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code majority, get 10% off. Also, don't forget to check out Trademark BS, or as Michael likes to call it, the Michael Brooks Show on Patreon. What's the number today?
1 second.
Seriously?
Yeah, actually, seriously.
You don't have push alerts coming?
It is at 308. Thank you,
Whoa!
everyone. Thank you.
Broke through the 300 barrier.
Yes, sir. Thank you, thank you.
All right, quick break. See you in the fun half. We are back. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. Boop, 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 boop. 646-257-3920 is the number. 646-257-3920 is the number to be a part of the program if that is what you so desire, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go to those phones. We'll start here with an 850 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 850. Who's this? Where are you calling?
Hi, Sam. This is
Yes.
Sam. This is Bob in Pensacola. How you doing?
Hello, Bob. Pensacola, Florida, the home of
Yes,
Ring of
sir.
Fire Radio.
Of what?
Ring of Fire Radio is done out of Pensacola, Florida.
Oh, really? Oh, absolutely. Yeah. In fact, I'm kind of acquainted with Mike Capitonis a little bit. I know he's one of his secretaries.
Okay. There you go.
Anyways, just a real quick comment about what you were just talking about before I get to the reason I called. By the way, before I even start that, thank you so much for everything you do. You and Matt and Kelly and Michael and even old Matt. I mean, I've appreciated you guys for years now.
Oh, well, thank you.
so
I
much.
appreciate that. How did you first come to listen to the show?
So, well, I'm an audiologist in Pensacola, so on my lunch break, I sit at my computer and I basically turn YouTube on, and I started with your arguments with libertarians, and I just loved that.
Oh, great.
And anyways, then I just got hooked, and then with the election, I started watching it almost every lunch break. And actually, I'm off work today, but
all right. Well,
just a real quick comment about what you were talking about before about Republican voters and a tribalism. It seems like they all have this same kind of faulty cognitive process, of ideology, where they live by these simple maxims. Like you ever run into somebody who says, this person says one thing, another person says another, and the truth is somewhere in the middle.
Right.
That to me that's just ridiculous. That presumes that everybody lies the same degree. It's like
Or it just presumes that everybody has the same access to information, that everybody makes the same
Right,
effort.
exactly.
I mean, there's not just two sides of a story. There's often many different sides of a story, but there's
exactly.
Yeah.
But anyways, what it does, in my opinion, it removes objectivity, and gradation. It makes everything. Anyways, it just drives me nuts. But the reason I called, was yesterday you had on, I think his name was Matt Stoller.
Yes.
And you were talking about monopolies, and he said, and I mean, I appreciated what he was saying, and I agree with a lot of what he was saying, but he said something that really boils my blood, and I don't think it was intentional. I think he's just a little misguided. He said that hearing aids generally are microphones, and that's just the farthest thing from the truth. Hearing aids are computers. And they're very complex. And secondly, he mentioned Elizabeth Warren, who I appreciate a lot of the things that she does, but this bill that she proposes to basically allow hearing aids to be sold at counters is very misguided. It's just wrong. Hearing aids are basically tools that we use to treat nerve damage hearing loss, because over 90% of hearing loss is nerve damage.
Mm-hmm.
And so to treat nerve damage, you have to do some kind of retraining the brain has to do to compensate. And that needs to be guided. That's basically what audiologists do, is we help people we guide them through the process of basically relearning how to hear with hearing aids. That's one of the things. I mean, we do lots of things, but that's the treatment aspect of nerve damage hearing loss. So having people just go to a counter and buy hearing aids and put them in their ears, well, we've been doing that for over 100 years, right? Right? You know that. I mean, people could just go buy amplifiers. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. Okay. Yeah, they could just buy amplifiers.
Well, exactly. I mean, so, and hearing aids were just very ineffective for a long time. In fact, hearing aids were a scam for a very long time. It was like snake oil. You had people that were basically con men selling hearing aids with these big promises they could never live up to. And then audiologists got involved in the 70s, and we did more academic research, and we helped improve the technology. And they became computers in the late 90s. and then there was actually a very large increase in efficacy. Hearing aids became more more effective, and the satisfaction rates went way up. And so today, hearing aids are a lot more effective, but it's not just because of technology. Simply putting them in your ears doesn't really do it. That's usually the beginning of the process. The brain has to basically acclimate to this new stimulus, and that takes time, and it takes guidance, and it takes follow-up. So I worked at the VA for a long time. That's where I started my career. And, no one in this country dispenses more hearing aids than the VA.
Mm.
And so I would say the attrition rate that I personally experienced was over half. Over half of the hearing aids I dispensed to the VA, and I'd say it's pretty common among all VA audiologists. Over half the hearing aids we dispense wind up in a drawer unused. And the reason is because follow-up care is horrible at the VA, just horrible. There's no time for it. So the typical story, the typical thing that would happen, a patient would come in, I would fit them with hearing aids, and then they would go away, and they would either be too loud. Those are the common complaints at first. They're too loud, they're uncomfortable. And of course, they'll call, can I get back in? Need to see the doctor again. And 3 months. And that's kind of if they're lucky. Sometimes it takes longer than that. So they're not going to wear them if they're too loud or uncomfortable, which is very common at first.
All right, so the issue is you think you're arguing that and I'm not familiar with the bill. I should tell you, other than what Matt had mentioned. But so you're arguing that this is something that needs some type of counseling associated with it. And if you just make it over the counter,
absolutely,
you're going to reduce the efficacy of these things, not necessarily because the technology is any worse, but the way in which you adopt this technology as a patient, you need to be guided through. Otherwise, you don't know what you're doing, really.
Absolutely. Now, it is true that there's absolutely no oligopoly in hearing aid manufacturers. I think there's like 6 major manufacturers. And then, I mean, I'm all for breaking that up. The prices for hearing aids, in my opinion, are way too high. And so I would say over half of the patients that I run into that don't follow my recommendation to get hearing aids, it's because they can't afford it. Right. That's just horrible. And so what I think Elizabeth Warren should be more what she should be more focused on is having I think it's Title 18 of the Social Security Act, and I know you're familiar with that one, right? So title maybe not Title 18. So Title 18, I think, is the one that prohibits Medicare from funding hearing aids, and so I think that needs to be changed. Because if we had better insurance coverage, especially those are the people that use. I mean,
I think the problem is that, like, I mean, look, I don't know the legislative history here, but I do know, just as soon as you tell me about expanding Medicare, that's not going to happen in this context. And so, I mean, look, here's the
why not? Why wouldn't it happen?
Because nobody's going to. Are you familiar with the Republican Congress? Yeah. I mean,
no.
They're debating how much.
Yeah, I got you now.
All they're debating right now is how much they think they can get away with cutting it with Medicare going forward.
Oh, right,
that's the next battle that's going to happen.
Now it's not going to happen.
Right.
But
down the road.
It was before. It was.
What do you? What do you think?
Ways and Means back in 2015.
All right.
Well, still didn't pass.
Well,
of course, that was still Republican control.
Yeah. I mean, that was the Senate as well, the Republican control as well.
Yeah.
All right. So let me ask you this. And I don't want to spend too much time on this, and I'll look into it. It's interesting. You raise an interesting point. If 50% of the patients that you come across don't buy it because of cost, and 50% of the ones that you do have it but don't use it because they're not being counseled.
No, that was at the VA. I'm in private practice now.
Oh, okay.
90% of my patients now are doing okay.
All right, but you still run across 50% who don't get it because of the cost.
Yes, sir.
I mean, so it's a bit of a trade-off, right? I mean, theoretically, your concern is some of your patients will go, or patients of your that like the ones that you treat will go and buy it over the counter, will not end up adapting to it or adopting it because they're not guided through the process. But it is going to open up a whole new set of people who are going to be able to buy it.
Right.
Right. I mean, so on some level, it's incumbent upon people who are not necessarily trained, I guess, to help people. But it's an interesting dilemma. But I'll look into it. But I appreciate the phone call.
Thank you very much, Dan.
Thanks. Bye.
Elizabeth Warren is a bourgeois conformist, and her incremental steps will never save us from the beast that is capitalism. Never mind how many hearing aids you throw around.
I feel
Bernie Sanders is an accommodationist.
I feel like you've got to work in like the feminazi quality that you.
I told Mitch McConnell that we would pin him to a gurney and castrate him if he asked for another up and down vote. And I think he got the message. I need a man about as much as a fish needs a bicycle.
You know, you know what occurs to me? Now, Corey Lewandowski apparently was on Fox and Friends this morning saying that Donald Trump is going to close the deal. He is going to get these Republicans to repeal Obamacare. And, here's the thing about Corey Lewandowski. He knows what Seb Gorka knows, which is that just like Donald Trump's voters, i.e. Republican voters, they're not looking for results. What they are looking for is good performance, feel-good rhetoric. And Corey Lewandowski knows exactly where his bread is going to be buttered in the future. And here he is on Fox and Friends at different times, right? Throughout the interview. In one interview. Let's see if you can glean. This is a compilation that somebody put together, right?
Yeah, Mediaite.
Mediaite put this together. See if you can glean what message Corey Lewandowski is trying to get across here.
Our best representative, who is stunningly beautiful and incredibly intelligent, sat next to Vladimir Putin at the request of the German chancellor. Our president, he got up and he walked over and he saw his beautiful wife, the First Lady of the United States, and he had a conversation with her. Going over and seeing the First Lady, who, by the way, speaks 5 languages, is incredibly beautiful, and is incredibly intelligent, and is a great representative of our country. But what I do know is this, is the First Lady is incredibly intelligent. She speaks 5, 6, 7 languages, and if she had a conversation with Vladimir Putin as a person who represents the United States, that is a benefit.
That is a benefit. Can anybody out there pick up the message of the day that Corey Lewandowski is trying to get out there?
Can never quit you, Corey. You get
Too
the main
good.
point.
Too good.
My daughter and my wife are babes.
Beautiful.
I like how he kept also upping the language count.
5, 6, 7. She's learning new languages as we speak.
I feel better about her talking to him than I do about Donald Trump.
No kidding. No kidding.
I speak Swahilis too. We're getting no work done. All husband wants to do is talk about how ugly Angela is, and she show off language skill.
Calling from a 651 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
First, they came for Sam Harris, but I did not speak out because I wasn't an Islamophobic neurologist. Then they came for Bill Maher, and I didn't say anything because he isn't funny. Then they came for Dave Rubin and Milo Yiannopoulos, and I didn't speak out because the only gay conservatives I want to hear from are Lindsey Graham and Cory Booker because they actually vote on things. Then they came for the Chris Lopaco, and there was no one left to speak out for me. It's bullshit. Hi, everyone.
What happened what happened to the Chris Lopaco?
I'm banned from streaming on YouTube. Thanks, Matt Leck. Someone hit me up on Twitter and said that you probably did it, but
what happened?
I for Net Neutrality Day, I put out a live stream that said the PP tapes are real, leaked by RT, and then I just had a picture of the loading symbol, with the wheel spinning type thing, and So, and then in the video description, it said, contact your representative about net neutrality, and people didn't like it. I got, hundreds of thumbs down or something. I can't remember. But anyway, people reported me, and now I'm banned from streaming on YouTube, and I need Bill Maher and all those other people to come out of the woodwork and help me out.
Wait, you're banned for live, but not forever, right? You're just suspended.
I don't know how this works, man. I'm scared because they just said you're banned, and they didn't tell me anything else. And then when I try to talk to them, they don't want to talk to me. So it's tough. It's hard, and I'm triggered. So I just want to get people aware.
Can you shoot videos that are not live?
I can't. I shot one last night that wasn't live, and it actually, looks better and it's okay. And I was thinking about maybe doing it that way for the rest of my
the show.
YouTube
look,
that's not,
I mean, Chris Lepaco, it is not the point, guys. It is not the point. But all I'm saying is that, sometimes life gives you lemons, and you got to make lemonade.
Or lemon apples.
I mean, I don't think it's permanent. I think you probably have a moratorium on live streaming.
I think that was one of the
guys,
funniest things
I'll
I've heard.
update you.
Is there maybe people could tweet at YouTube? I don't know.
So
Free
I
Lepaco.
see,
Free Lepaco. Hashtag Free Lepaco.
I see that you have
It is a
2,500
hashtag.
followers. If you can get up to 100,000 pretty soon, they'll talk to you.
Kelly.
It's just my
I'm
professional
sorry. Hold on.
recommendation. If you
Sorry,
could
Kelly.
somehow
We
just
gotta get
get
the facts straight here.
97. We could somehow just get
You're
97,000
entitled to your own
more
facts.
followers.
Wait. You're entitled to your own opinions. You're not entitled to your own facts. I have 3,600 followers. Okay, so just get that straight. Love you guys. Have a good day.
Thanks, Chris Lepaco. You just got faced by Chris Lepaco. Kelly can't.
That was an incredible.
Kelly doesn't know how
opening
to
to
do YouTube stats.
Someone doesn't know how to do YouTube stats. I'm looking at it right now, man. Sorry, Chris.
Calling from another 651 caller. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam. This is Sam in Minnesota.
Hello, Sam. What's on your mind?
Hey, I was calling just as kind of a follow-up to your caller with the questions about socialism and communism yesterday.
Yeah.
And wanted to straighten out or clarify a few things. Socialism, in Marx's, in his book, Socialism, Scientific and Utopian, he outlines the method by which, sort of in an ideological scenario, how you go from a capitalist society, and he borrows from Hegel's dialectic materialism, where socialism is the antithesis of capitalism, where the state owns everything, and communism is the synthesis of communism of socialism and capitalism, where there is no property. And in a certain way, in a utopian scenario, it more resembles anarchy, where there is no such thing as property. It's all a fun thought experiment, but I guess my counter to your caller last week would be, or yesterday, sorry, is that it's not really applied in any ideal way or in a utopian way. It bears as much resemblance to reality as Walden Pond by Thoreau. We borrow principles, and I guess this is similar, or where I'm borrowing from my call last week. We borrow principles where these ideologies sort of inform our principles, but it's never something that we see a true representation of in an absolute way.
Good point. Appreciate the call.
Can I add one more thing?
Quick.
I would say that I'd be interested to hear someone talk about whether or not communism or socialism is consistent with democracy any more so than capitalism is, and what we see vis-a-vis your conversations with Nancy McLean is that in a certain way the consolidation of wealth in monopolies and in capitalist societies can be antithetical to democracy as well. So I guess I just toss that out there.
All right, appreciate the call.
Elaine Chow better watch where she walks, Mitch.
John McCain's blood clot. God damn it, next time, guys. Next time. On the upside, I made it so he shits his pants every time he sneezes. Epish.
I don't know why there's something of I don't want to have this debate again, but I think the Scalise thing is fertile ground for humor, but there's something, the blood clot thing for whatever reason bothers me more. That's so bad.
Epish. Wisconsin Citizens Action, along with my union, MTEA, and many others, worked very hard to make Ron Johnson's staff have a very difficult workday. Though some may disagree, Johnson did put a lot of sand in those gears. He did, yes. I had a lot of lefties from out of state tell me, what's the point of even talking to him? You're wasting your time. I told them, believe it or not, politicians are still influenced by power. We need to exert our power in any way we can. There's a big lesson we learned in Wisconsin after 2011. Can't expect elections and the courts to operate in a vacuum. They can, for better or for worse, be influenced by political, economic, social pressure. I have no idea why Johnson was doing what he was doing. He bragged about taking the lead on the planning committee and then claimed he wasn't able to read the bill properly after the fact. He's remarkably stupid, but even stupid people can be influenced and have an agenda. The next fight to take on is the budget. Question for Majority Report crew and listeners. How much does rhetoric matter for left-wing politics? Should we concern ourselves with honing our rhetoric, or is it a waste of time? I mean, I think, we're living in a very strange era, it seems to me. Broadly speaking, I think rhetoric is important. But we're living in a very strange era where, because of Trump, the press is about as skeptical as I've seen it, since I was conscious of these things. They don't necessarily cover, the things I would like them to at times. But to the extent that they do, there's a lot more skepticism because of its association with Trump. So I think rhetoric is important, but I do think what you're talking about in terms of organizing is more important. Messaging is good, but organizing is where the real power is going to come from. There's no message out there that is going to rebuild organizations. Just actual organizing is going to do that. Nuclear Negroid. Sam, your dad recently bundled and sold me many of your unpaid and unsecured childhood debts. I'll be in touch shortly with payment plans. Out of curiosity, what could you have possibly needed $17 for in 1973? $17 was a lot of money in 1973. But let's see. In fact, I do. No, I would have been. I started a snow shoveling business, I think in middle school. And I ended up buying a little snow thrower. I blew all that money. Staten Island, Mike, that Mark Ames Taibbi shit from the Exile was pretty abhorrent read. Is Lek of a mind to press Taibbi on some of this? I did read that stuff, and that was a chapter that was written by Ames, at least the one that I saw, which I find a little troublesome.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's not something I would want to be written about. I don't think what's actually put in there is good. I think it's bad. I think they should maybe respond to it, but that's not really my fight.
Comrade Collins, I deeply resent Comrade Brooks's impression of me. If he was a real revolutionary, he would know when someone reads Das Kapital for the 100th time, they develop a vocal crack due to their despair at the plight of the proletariat. Sam's former co-host and Ring of Fire comrade Robert had a similar condition. Left his best, smashed the fash. Stein 2020.
Bobby Kennedy is a capital apologist.
I love Sarah Palin. I'm done taking right-wing critique seriously. I heard this talk of how the right hated the bailout, but in the latest Pew poll, they rated financial institutions as net favorable. Also, I heard they voted for Trump because of how negatively they viewed globalization. But when the G20 protests were going on, they were the first people coming out to bash and smear the protesters. If I correctly interpreted the protest, they should have been natural allies. Indeed. Ronald Reagan, curious what your take is in the difference between Republicans during Watergate and modern-day Republicans. During Watergate, Republicans were willing to turn on Nixon, even though Nixon was much more popular than Trump is now. Well, first off, recall that Democrats were still in control, I think, of the Senate or the House. Or definitely the House. So they weren't the majority. But the difference is that the project of sort of the racial polarization of the parties has gone much further. And the culture wars, have now been digested and commodified. I mean, I think that's the big difference. In 1972, 73, the culture wars were not, I think I don't know. And this is really more of a question of Rick Perlstein or something like that. But my sense is that in 73, as people are looking back, what they are looking at and what they are seeing is they believe they're in a post-Vietnam era. And that what ultimately became morphed into a post-culture war or the beginning of the culture war, I feel like was a later, was something that developed later. Which is not to say that people didn't perceive themselves in a post-Vietnam era in, let's say, 1980, but I think it took 10 years for the culture war to move to the forefront, at least nationally. I mean, remember, Reagan was in California fighting both the anti-war protests and the culture war. And then by 92, Pat Buchanan is making this proclamation at the Republican convention. Dan Quayle is, as a sitting vice president, is knocking Murphy Brown for having a child out of wedlock. Isn't that how bizarre that is? And I should tell you, Murphy Brown is a fictional character.
She was a whore.
Dems controlled both the House and the Senate under Nixon. Let's see, wait a second. Joseph Bolin, NDAA 2018 passed the House 344 to 81. Potential Dem presidential candidates Schiff and Tim Ryan. Tulsi Gabbard, nay. According to you, the only people who can comment on politics is if they take phone calls on their show. Why are you attacking?
Good for Tulsi Gabbard on that vote.
Why are you attacking truth seekers like Jimmy Dore? Jimmy Dore doesn't seek he doesn't put much effort into that seeking. But not soft imperialist pseudo-left outlets like Democracy Now!, Jacobin, and even Matt Taibbi, someone I personally like. You will not see actual anti-imperialist critic from them on Venezuela and Syria.
The politician, that was so great. Paula just did a Taibbi, who I like personally. Is a soft neoliberal sellout. That's so awesome.
This is why I converted to Maoism, third worldism. Also, this new season of Game of Thrones is laughably bad.
Yeah, sometimes he's got. Well, there's only one episode in, but that was a table setter episode if ever there was one.
Oh, I thought it was better than most of the premiere episodes. Oh yeah. Your town is next. Is there a goal from Majority Report patron at which you'll turn off YouTube ads? I'm starting to get fed up with having to sit through obnoxiously smug Prager University clips to hear more Gorka impressions. Just to hear more Gorka.
I don't understand why people don't understand. Like, that's a good thing. Like, those ads are funding us.
Well, he's saying if we get to a certain point on Patreon. I mean, I don't think. I mean, I guess if we got to that 10,000.
Yeah, it would have to be a pretty extreme increase. The ads are the only way to give you content for free, really. I mean, it is annoying, I understand, but, it's one or the other.
I love those Prager University
pay
ads.
or
They're
you-
always
Prager
like,
University ads. I
like,
get news for
hey,
you.
I'm a
Even if we
random
turned off-
person of color that they found to say Republicans are good.
Even if we
Here's
were to
3
turn
minutes.
off, even if we were to turn off ads, I'd probably just embed those. Susan Collins sounds a lot like Torgo and Manos, Hand to the Fate on the Mystery Science Mystery Science Theater 3000 rendition. Anyways, disturbing. Gorica, why do you make fun of my degree? How many degrees have you have? And what are they in beta cuckology? Doug, Sam, what you call right-wing lunacy is actually a constitutional principle. Both Rand Paul and Mike Lee are trying to support. That is, it's not the role of the federal government to provide affordable health care to all its citizens. Where does it say that in the Constitution? Like most godless progressives, you refuse to address what is the role of charities in providing health care to the poor. I'll tell you what the role of charities in providing health care to the poor is. Insufficient. It was insufficient before Medicare and Medicaid. It was insufficient before Social Security. It is insufficient now. It is so easy to find studies that show indisputably that charities cannot provide for health care. If they could, they would be providing for the millions who don't have health care now.
Why don't
Christian
you
and Jewish
stop
charities have been
attacking-
providing health care to the poor before the Republic was founded? Yes, I understand, but not enough.
Why don't you stop attacking Jimmy Dore? He's a truth seeker.
Doug Stradamus predicts next week when Senate leader Mitch McConnell calls for a vote to repeal Obamacare once and for all, he will have every rhino on record. These rhinos, like Susan Collins, will lose their elite positions on committees and be forced back to their offices and dining room where they can be marginalized and forgotten.
What is
What
the
is the
IMers
prediction?
name?
What is the prediction? Chris, you can always come on my show. Let's call it Doug and Chris. We don't hate each other, huh? Discoot Stew. Daily Beast reports Russians successfully got Rohrbacher to lobby against McGinsty Act using Russian propaganda videos. This comes after the audio they played it off as a joke where Kevin McCarthy and Putin say Rohrbacher and Trump are on the payroll. I really think a lot of U.S. And majority report included are failing to recognize an existential attack from Russia. Maybe no literal shots have been fired, but this is war. I tend to think this is. I don't think it is war.
Oh, that's a really don't not feed into that kind of rhetoric. That's very problematic, to say the least. Because at a certain point, you have to actually start, cash some of those checks, and that would be a disaster.
Indeed. All right, here's some funny stuff about Donald Trump. Apparently, there's a new book out. It's what's the name of this book? It's called Steve Bannon, Devil's Bargain. Steve Bannon, Donald Trump and the Storming of the Presidency. And apparently, according to this book, Paul Manafort's final straw came when Trump got pissed at him for allowing a New York Times report detailing how campaign aides were using cable TV interviews to give then-candidate Trump advice. According to this book, Trump demanded of Manafort, how can anybody allow an article that says your campaign is all fucked up? You think you've got to go to TV to talk to me? You treat me like a baby? Am I a baby, like a baby to you? I sit there like a little baby and I watch TV and you talk to me. Am I a fucking baby, Paul?
Yes, yes, yes.
Is it just me, or does this sound exactly like what happened in Goodfellas?
That's what I was thinking about.
Do you think I'm funny? Yeah. Do I make you laugh? Am I a clown? Am I a clown to you?
I was thinking about that.
I mean, this is exactly framed in the same way. I wonder if maybe...
I think the guy from Goodfellas is a little more competent than Trump.
That's true.
Yeah. I remember Pesci.
Everyone is.
Yeah, it's Pesci.
Oh, my God. So now start tweeting at Trump. Get your shoe shine box.
Get you. And then, according to Green, Bannon once referred to Ryan as a, quote, limp-dicked motherfucker who was born in a petri dish at the Heritage Foundation.
When you're right, you're right.
You don't know about his dick.
You know what? I messed that up. It's limp dick, not limp dicked, according to the asterisks.
Yeah, maybe you should fucking get your facts straight, fucking Jew. Steve Bad here.
But here is...
I haven't seen my dick since 1985.
Here is... no. So far, my favorite quote, or I guess anecdote from what has been reported is in this new book, Deal with the Devil, is about Chris Christie. And to celebrate, let's play a clip of Chris Christie. He's at the New York Mets game. They're playing St. Louis. And he catches a foul ball. Listen to the audience reaction, and not just of that, of the color commentator.
3-2, he's popped up. Rivera giving a look at it. And a souvenir for Chris Christie. Are you kidding me?
How about that? You just noticed him. Boy, are you hot, I'll tell you. You just noticed him between innings, and what do you know? He gets a ball, left-handed catch.
They're booing him. And then he goes on to say he must have driven up from the beach.
He's so tan. It's
Yeah, he's
out of
super
control.
He's not sitting on the beach and getting
It's
a tan
out
cut.
of control.
According to the Devil's Bargain, the moment Trump soured on New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, reportedly on election night, Christie sat down next to Trump as it dawned on the candidate he was going to win. Even as others in the room avoided congratulating the businessman, Trump reportedly flashed a look of annoyance, clearly resenting the intrusion, as Christie informed him President Barack Obama would not be calling him directly. Hey, Donald, the president talked to me earlier, Christie told Trump, referring to Obama. If you win, he's going to call my phone and I'll pass it over to you. Hey, Chris, you know my fucking phone number, Trump said. Just give it to the president. I don't want your fucking phone.
I am totally Team Trump on this one.
Definitely.
Why does there need to be an intermediary phone? What?
Because we're buds.
I mean, that is actually the really funny implication of it. You know what? Maybe, okay, my favorite theory, which I'm making up on the spot, is that Obama texted Christie and said, because he knew it would piss Trump off, that if the phone call goes through your cell, I'll get you Springsteen tickets. Used Springsteen again to fuck with Christie.
I think the problem is that Obama didn't know that you could star 67 and not have your caller ID show up. I think he just didn't want to give Trump his number. This is pretty amazing. This is okay. According to a reporter, a guy named Justin Fenton, who is a reporter of the Baltimore Sun, there was footage released of a Baltimore police officer planting drugs in an alleyway that supposedly led to the arrest of a man in January who is still being held on drug charges because he couldn't afford bail, right? It's a $50,000 bail. Here is, apparently they released the body cameras, and I guess the body cameras must be running at all time. But they're not, they have to be triggered by the police in some fashion. Because apparently these body cameras record the 30 seconds before you press the button. So they must have like one of those like DVRs built into them. I'm not sure how this works, but it's 30 seconds without audio. And so you see the cop, and apparently the cops didn't know this. I don't get any of this. You see the cop planting the drug. There he is. He's putting it in a can. And he and the two other cops, they're just watching it. They're just looking at it. They don't know what they're saying. But they walk out of the alleyway. And they're just sitting there. And then he triggers the camera. Now you can hear the audio. Here it comes. And he's going to go back into the alley. Like,
I'm going to check here. Hold on.
I'm going to go check here, he says. He walks back down the alley. He knows the camera's on now. Looking at various things. Moves a rock. A garbage. I wonder if this guy used the old put it in a Coke can thing. Wait, there's a Coke can. I wonder if it's in the Coke can. Oh, look at that. Yeah.
Yo.
Amazing find.
Hold up. Not yet.
There you go. He found it. Apparently, the Baltimore State's attorney offered the man a 3-year plea deal after reviewing the video, and the case was eventually dropped. Unbelievable. Yeah.
What is going on?
Everybody needs to watch Serpico.
No!
Just need to watch Serpico.
The police officers should be in jail.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
All right.
It's what the police do. They're an instrument of the white supremacist capitalist state.
Sorry,
Isn't that
everybody.
right, Mitch? Stop mansplaining me with your dude bro nonsense.
Sorry, Sam. I got a little bit.
You got a little bit heated. It's
little
okay.
bit overexcited there.
It's okay. Sam's an accommodationist. Look at how he attacks Tim Black and Jimmy Dore.
Call from 818 area code. Who's this?
Sam, I'm calling to just say that I think you're very intelligent. I think you're very beautiful. You host maybe 3 to 4 shows a week, but you're just so intelligent and you're so beautiful. Honestly, you might even host 5 to 6 shows a week. But you're also just in great shape, so I wanted to say that also.
Well, thank you. That's very sweet. I appreciate that.
This is Steve.
That's
This
the
is
Corey
Steve in
Lewin
Washington.
podcast.
How are
Hey,
you?
Steve. Good. How you doing?
Good. I wanted to make a quick podcast recommendation. It's called The Other Washington, and it's a progressive politics.
It's done, my
Sorry, we had a little technical difficulties. Thanks for calling.
I feel special.
Yes, go ahead. Sorry.
I
What
was
was
going to
it?
make it's called The Other Washington, and it's a progressive politics podcast.
You want to control the Middle East and all?
I'm sorry. Steve, go ahead. What were you
I
saying?
think I'm missing the joke.
We don't want you
I
to
don't-
talk
I don't know
about
what
other
to say.
podcasts, dude. We're trying to run a podcast.
We got a fucking business here. What's the matter with you?
Trying to make some
what's the
money.
podcast?
Trying to get some fucking Blue Aprons ads. And
what's
you're
the-
ruining our numbers, you fucking moron. Michael's launching a whole fucking new one, and you're talking about another one that's not involved in the universe. We ought to cap your fucking kneecaps.
What is the podcast?
I guess I should recommend the Michael Brooks show.
Oh, there you go.
What is the podcast?
There you go.
Almost says what?
It's called the other Washington, and it pushes progressive issues, but they talk specifically about things like the minimum wage or voter registration and trickle down economics and how it works or doesn't work. But even though it's in the context of Washington State,
so it's a
pretty
local
good
podcast.
listen for people to.
Oh, so it's
Yeah,
a
it's a
low-ball
local
local podcast. No one cares. Next.
There shouldn't be any real competition for your show or for Michael's show. So
I thank you for that. I'm looking for local or state political
there
podcasts.
he
so
is.
I appreciate
Mr.
the contribution.
Ganjahead Asperger's himself wants to listen.
well, good luck with all the technical difficulties. I hope they work themselves out.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate
Wait.
that.
Is it on iTunes?
No, get out of here.
It's on iTunes. Yeah, They only started about. They've only done about 15 episodes.
All right. Well, we'll wait
Oh,
till they
great
get a
work
little
ethic
okay.
they have.
Yeah, great.
15 episodes.
If it's anything, Sam,
Wow.
I've been listening to your show since Air America days. So
all right.
I would never betray you and your 5, 7, 8 shows a week that you do. So
I appreciate that. That's very sweet. Thanks for the call.
Homo says
what? Thank you.
Washington State podcast.
The other Washington, I just
The
subscribed.
other Washington. Calling from a 513 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Joe calling from Dayton, Ohio.
What's happening, Joe?
Hey, well, I wanted to say first off that I was one of your earlier in the year emailers asking for access to the show that you so graciously gave so many of your listeners. And I'm getting my first significant paycheck on August 12th since then, and I'm going to take care of the time spent and pay it forward. And thank you, Majority Report, because it's been very helpful to me all year.
Oh, great. Well, I'm glad to hear that. And let me just reiterate, wait until you are flush and you've got some other bills paid. But I definitely...
Oh, it's the third thing I'm doing. It's the first thing is pay my bills. The second thing is dinner with my girlfriend, and the third thing is the Majority Report. And 7th or 8th is Michael's thing, so I'll take care of Michael too.
Right,
but
I was
very thankful.
I was
and
going to
things are
say
looking up,
girlfriend question mark sure. Who are you fooling, buddy?
TV dinner.
Okay, so I have a question, and I posed it to Michael some time ago, and I wanted to hear your response because it's still eating at me as an idea, and I'm sorry if it's stupid, but I know single payer, some version of that is definitely the way to go forward. In the event that we still get hung up for even 5 years, 10 years, California wants to do it, New York wants to do it. Why can't there be some kind of compact between the states that are willing to do it and also, by the way, the states that would be paying for it, and to see that it does work, and then the people in Alabama who keep voting against their interests will be like, hey, you know what, we've been lied to this whole time. Why can't that be a strategy going forward?
What do you mean a compact?
New York, I have no idea how this would work. I'm not an expert on this or even a student of this. But if New York and California governments and citizens said, hey, we're going to pull our resources and spread that risk even further. We have 50, 60 million people in California, 30, 40 in New York, whatever it is. That spreads the risk to almost 100 million people, and you can get other states potentially involved. And that brings the cost down. And why can't that?
I don't know how it would work. I don't. Frankly, I don't think that's. Listen, California, in terms of the mechanics of it, could do it, and they would save money. I mean, on a per capita basis, they would save money. I mean, that's not the issue. With California specifically, but I mean, everybody would have their taxes raised, and which I guess, maybe it would be marginal difference, but I have a feeling that, having such distinct populations, I just don't know that you would see that much savings. Between, I don't think you would see that much difference between what you would save in New York alone or in California alone. So I'm not sure, and politically it doesn't do
what
anything
if you could
else.
then? But what if you could then, Vermont wasn't able to do it? I don't know if that was just the way they did it, but then Vermont could be added to it. And yes,
Yeah, but
California's
Vermont
helping
couldn't
Vermont.
do
That's
it
the way
because
it's
there
gonna
was
work
no
anyway.
political will. The governor was afraid of proposing higher taxes. That's what happened in Vermont, period.
All right, well, I'll keep fighting the whole national effort then, and
Yeah.
I'll leave you guys alone. And a shout out to the IMer, John McCain's blood clot. I think that's hysterically funny. So
It is
keep that up,
hysterically
please.
funny.
Thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate the call.
Thank you, guys.
It is.
Should put it on Mount Rushmore, that blood clot.
Calling from an
That
847
blood clot never got
847
captured by
area
the Viet
code.
Cong.
847 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hello. Hi,
Hello?
my name is Parker, calling from Johnsburg.
Hey, Parker, what's on your mind?
Hi. Yeah. So, really quick. So, I used to work at an orthopedic practice, right? And I worked in the financial department doing like billing and collections mostly. And so it was owned by doctors, right? By like 6 or 7 of them together. And so they're small business owners forced to pay for healthcare benefits, for their employees.
Yep.
Plus, they're they're directly affected by the amount of people that are uninsured. They, our physicians specifically, and I think this is the case for most doctors that have a private practice that need to do surgeries in a hospital, they are required to be on call at the hospital, and so that's when they get these. They can get Medicaid patients through that, patients that aren't insured, and so we were constantly dealing with collections on those kinds of people, and so I don't get why this demographic, like these wealthy doctors that own their own businesses, are more interested in like a Medicare for all kind of system.
You don't understand why they're interested in why they wouldn't want to just like why they wouldn't want to dispense with the hassle involved in trying to get payments and dealing with insurance, et cetera, et cetera.
Right, like they would lose the burden of worrying about benefits for their own employees, and then that there'd be a better option for that, and then they wouldn't have to, because we're constantly calling, and they send hundreds of people to collections each month, like on all these people that they were taking from the hospital. They're forced to take these people, no matter who they are, no matter what their insurance company was. And then they have the burden. At least if they had some kind of Medicare, they could.
Well, have you ever talked about it with any of the doctors? Have you ever talked about it with any of the orthodontists there?
Well, I know orthopedics.
Orthopedics,
the biggest problem that they're always frustrated with overstepping regulations through Medicare, threatening to take away funding if they're not meeting certain standards. And so I know that that's a point of concern for them.
Yeah, they're afraid of. I don't know. They're afraid of cost controls. I mean, because what happens is that Medicare and Medicaid will say, like, based on the data we have, you're prescribing this or you're performing that doesn't make sense, and we won't pay for it. That's what they talk about, those regulations. We will not cover it. And they lose some money that way.
Sorry.
They lose some money that way. But, I mean, you're in a better position to go and ask. And I would just, to cover yourself, I wouldn't reveal too much of a disposition one way or the other. I mean, I don't know. It depends on who the doctors are, I guess.
Right.
But you're in a better position to ask. Why don't you ask them and then call me back? Because I'd be curious.
All right, I will. I guess I will give that a shot.
All right, appreciate it. Bye.
And then one more thing. Left is best. Left is best.
I appreciate
that. Left is best. Left is best. Left is best. Left is best. What? You're not on board for that, you little prick?
Calling a 515 area code. Who's this?
Hey, Sam. This is Sanjeeva from Ames, Iowa.
What's on your mind, Sanjeeva?
Okay. First thing, Our Revolution's doing the Summer of Progress with DSA and some other progressive groups. So what we're doing is like calling our senators, Democratic House members, to persuade them to support the bills concerning single-payer health care, universal access to abortion, updated Voting Rights Act, immigration reform, and Jimmy Dore's, a version of Jimmy Dore's Green New Deal. It's kind of like what Cenk was doing with the HR 676, like just persuading people to do that over the summer. So that's one thing.
Great. Where can people get more information on that?
Just go to Our Revolution's website, and I think even in their Twitter, they say they have like a petition which you can sign, which will go to House Democrats to make them co-sponsor these particular bills. It's kind of our progressive agenda, I think.
Okay. And what else you got?
There's also in Missouri, there's a special election, HD 50, which Our Revolution's getting involved for Michaela Skelton. So that election's coming up in August 22nd. I think.
All right, people should keep an eye out for that. Appreciate the call, Sanjiva.
And my third thing was Kamala Harris appears to be preparing to run for president. I think the LA Times reported she was with Clinton donors in the Hamptons.
Yeah, I saw that too. I mean, she could be just looking for donors. So it's not necessarily in 2020, but it's possible. I would imagine so. At the very least, she would be exploring that. Appreciate the call. I mean, we've talked on this program that, and I think, the reality is, my understanding is that people in California are, they perceive her as having been a lot less aggressive, particularly on Mnuchin and One West. And I think David Dayen's been on the program talking about how she basically sat on an investigation of Mnuchin and quashed it more or less by attrition. And so there's a lack of enthusiasm, I think, with like California progressives for her.
Yeah. And also a mixed kind of criminal justice and prosecutorial record. I mean, on one hand, relative by the standards of her position, some openness to reform, but still being in a position where you're supporting some pretty regressive prison policies.
I get the sense that she is more of like a ideologically unmoored, reacting to pressure type of politician than a Cory Booker who is like, does have an agenda, just, de-emphasizes it. And
he's a little bit more genuinely kind of neoliberal. I think you're right. I think on certain issues, I think she's pretty committed on climate. There's a few. I mean, I think she's liberal-ish, but I would also add, Kamala Harris doesn't care about you. She doesn't give a fuck. Look at her. Does she seem authentic?
Denver Dave, Sam, regarding Mesa County, Colorado, lots of white Christians, especially lily white Mormons, lots of baby boomers, elderly retirees, energy sector fracking. It's always been heavily subsidized there. They're gun-loving, SUV driving Western sloper GOPers. They think they're rugged individualist 19th century rancher and farmers. They aren't. They've been granted cheap water rights and access to public lands, leased to them at rock-bottom prices for decades. These people are public welfare sucks. 72, 73, more people of both parties were liberal. Politics and public service weren't derided. In other words, government, irrespective of party affiliation, served important civic goals. Attorney Andrew, I want to clarify something about Doug's call on Monday. And other callers claim the Commerce Clause is an enabling clause that does not limit a state's power to regulate commerce. Second caller is partially right. In constitutional law, there's a thing called a dormant Commerce Clause, referring to a set of principles dictating the Commerce Clause does. Dictating that the Commerce Clause does, in effect, limit each state's ability to regulate interstate commerce. This body of law is developed through several cases showing that states cannot unduly disfavor commerce from outside of the state, cannot overly burden interstate commerce, and the like. All right, in other words, like you can't set up tariffs in your state. But let me be very clear, Doug is still mindlessly wrong. Insurance being sold across state lines has nothing to do with states banning the sale of insurance from out of state. It has to do with each state's specific rules and what insurance plans must have in each state. In other words, yes, there's a different regulatory structure in each state. And insurance companies, just like it's almost the same dynamic with having one risk pool for compliant and non-compliant Obamacare plans. It's just too complicated.
I don't talk about risk pools anymore because Franken totally chewed me on that.
Two more things. Michael Susan Collins has really gotten really fucking good. Second, I had to put together an IKEA bed frame last night and decided to watch Hayes only to find that Ari Melber filled in. Despite being frustrated with the stupid fucking screws and shitting equipment that comes with Nordic furniture, I could not help but be annoyed with Ari Melber's face, voice, and thoughts. I hate every idea he has and every articulation of it that comes from him. He's terrible. I've never been so annoyed with a broadcaster, and I used to hate listening to Mark Levin.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, Mel Bodies. Well, A homo.
Freak out. Have you debated Ben Shapiro? He actually seems skilled at debating, even though he seems to be wrong in a few things.
A few things? Seriously?
I haven't. Lefty
Did you see that clip of the woman who threatened to take Ben Shapiro out in a stretcher? Katie Tour's mother.
Katie Tour's mother said that?
Well, I don't know. This is hard because I don't know the name of this person when it was a him or before their transition. But it's a former journalist. I think it's Katie Tour's father, now mother, who had a transition. Right. And they were on a CNN panel together. Ben Shapiro's like, "You're sick. You're mentally ill." And he like leans over Ben Shapiro and is basically like, "You can leave in a stretcher, sweetheart," or something. And Ben Shapiro's a total like, "I'm being threatened. I'm being threatened."
Was this on Mars show?
It was on CNN.
Oh my God, that's
CNN.
amazing.
It was great.
Lefty Kosi, regarding communism/socialism, studies looking at kibbutzes in Israel determine once that a group gets bigger than around 100 people, communism doesn't work as people tend to look after their own self-interest rather than the greater good of strangers. Johnny Ganja Cookie. Wait till Kelly finds out why Susan Collins talks that way. Communist Dog. Comrade Michael, what does right-wing Mandela think of John Oliver inviting a lawsuit from the coal industry on him stinking immigrant?
John Oliver is to comedy what women are to comedy.
Melania is doing to multilinguists what Ben Carson did to brain surgeons. Vince Foster. Is Sam to... Vince Foster? Is Sam to eighth man Cavaldez as Bill Hicks is to Alex Jones? Red Pill, Dovetail, Killary? That is all. Oh, yeah. I look apparently like that guy. Kelly, what's your number? Michael, what's your address? Let's meet for 10 minutes. But it better not be like the whole Don Jr. thing, if you know what I mean. He just wanted the info he promised. Sad. No, scratch that. I mean, situation sad. Okay. A Simpleman. Sam, you made last night's Seth Meyers clip in last night talking about Scott Pruitt. Matt, play that. I just sent you the link. Yeah, I sent that to you. Or you can play this one as queued up to it. But yeah, play that one right there. Apparently, once again, my voice and image being used for...
failed to get the necessary votes to pass, you might think the Trump administration isn't accomplishing anything. But there is one department, the Environmental Protection Agency, that has actually been quietly implementing big changes, unfortunately, to the benefit of a select few. So we decided to take a break from the breaking news of the day to look at Trump's EPA. It's time for the check-in. For years, Donald Trump has expressed doubt about climate change, once tweeting that global warming was just a hoax perpetrated by the Chinese. In fact, during his campaign, he went so far as to say he would consider getting rid of the Environmental Protection Agency altogether, if only he could remember what it was actually called.
Would you eliminate any departments?
Oh, absolutely. Department of Environmental, I mean, the DEP is killing us environmentally. It's just killing our businesses.
Get rid of the DEP. There's no such thing as the DEP. Mission accomplished. Now, Trump didn't follow through on his promise to eliminate the agency. Instead, he put a man in charge whose prior environmental experience consisted mostly of suing the EPA in an effort to help big business.
The president also appointed Scott Pruitt to lead the EPA, a man who in the past has sued to stop environmental regulations.
You have Pruitt, whose job it has been to actually nullify the statutory authority of the EPA.
Well, Scott Pruitt was not a big fan of the EPA to begin with, was he?
No, he was the Attorney General of Oklahoma and had sued it about a dozen times.
Oh, my God. And now he's the head of it.
All right, that's
it's
good.
Like the plot.
All right, well, there you have it. There you have it. Just another prop. Seth Meyers' little world.
Oh, we got a couple of Seth Meyers over here.
That's good.
Works.
You got to like an era where late night television comedy is doing like an expose on the EPA chief.
Seth Meyers has been pretty aggressive, actually.
I mean, we've come a long way from Jay Leno having Schwarzenegger
I miss headlines.
On his.
Hey guys, did you know? Did you read
He's
the papers?
announcing his running for governor.
Did you know that George W. Bush is misleading us on the Iraq War? Let's do a 5-minute mashup on that. Woke Jay Leno. Did you know that that's starting the entire EPA process because Cheney had the energy people there in his energy committee, and it's not available to the public.
Crispy
you know
taco.
about this? You read the paper?
Lewandowski's trying to get promoted to VP of PP. A nice, cushy job pissing on Trump in the Oval Office. Greg. Ronald Reagan doubts whether sitting having its own currency can help. They did it in Bristol and now doing it in Oakland. Consider this. The money stays local and the community won't hemorrhage dollars. Well, I mean, in Berkshires, in the Berkshires they have like some type of like Berkshire?
I think there was a Berkshire. I mean, and I don't
Berkshire
think
buck?
it lasted very long. I think what some people do that's more interesting is basically like time banks or other ways of people sharing skill sets, which kind of achieves the same thing without this, the alternative currency. Time banks are an interesting model.
I mean, a local currency is all well and good if it's which is basically like, hey, it's coupon stuff. Right. That only works here. And it's all well and good as long as you have access to a real currency.
Right.
I was wondering, how political has Seth Meyers been throughout his career? Or, do you know? Because when he's been political, well, right. But here's the thing that I was thinking. I used to wait on him and his now wife. What are you gonna? Okay. Yes, I was a waitress, and they were people who ate.
Were they
food.
bad?
No, definitely not. She's a human rights lawyer. So,
Of course. Now all makes sense.
No, I just wondered if he got more serious about all of this stuff because it seemed that...
I don't know. I mean,
because he's definitely going hard with it,
I hung out with him at the 2008 DNC. That is my only exposure. And he didn't, I was too drunk. I don't remember any of it. So
that was when I was waiting on them when they were not yet married.
Was it in Colorado?
It was not. It was in New York. What are you talking about?
The idea of commuting 15 miles each way to work every day is a concept that's 70 years old and tremendously wasteful. Well, I think we already got that message from you. Ben, so sad you cucks aren't celebrating America elected its first orange president. I'm not saying this is the end of racism against Oompa Loompas and people of fake tans, but a country where man came from humble beginnings and turned a small loan of $1 million to becoming president shows we're in a post-racial era. Donnie Corleone Jr., the caller talking about the general Republican voter loves equivocation, was spot on. That relativism is the basis of fascist propaganda, especially in Russia today. Dolink. Rural America just watched Stevie, just expired from Netflix. It gave a big window to the lies of thinking of poor, uneducated social struggles, addictions, domestic violence, susceptible to Trump and Republican thinking. Subject of the film has been abused and abandoned by family. Live in their own world. That's where they do. They don't watch MSNBC or CNN. Well, also, it's not even available there. MSNBC doesn't have clearance in a lot of the country. Undergrad Sessions just expanded the forfeiture rules. Just saw this on Twitter. Wonderful. Cheney and Bush's. Any economic system is compatible with democracy if the people vote for it. Maybe, but not necessarily ongoing. Let's put it that way. Kevin in Tampa here, not able to listen live. Apology if this comment isn't relevant to today's show regarding the definition of socialism. The Soviet new economic policy can be better understood as a form of state-led capitalism than socialism, especially when defined in terms of property rights.
I think that's a very good point.
Commenter, you had to say we need more people working for socialist ends than debating the intricacies of the definition is dead on. I think your attitude of mild indifference is a pretty good approach, but that may leave you vulnerable to a similar kind of criticism that you had for the Clinton people, i.e. lacking an affirmative policy program. Absent the North Star of theoretical and ideological consistency, it's more difficult to expound an affirmative policy program. This is a fundamental problem on the left. We do not march in lockstep. I don't have a good answer for this. That said, the program of social democracy enjoys the happy coincidence of facilitating, enabling that democratic struggle Medicare for all, free college, Social Security, all these things would enable more enlightened democratic participation by lessening the pressures of compulsory market participation and therefore exploitation. Indeed. Not safe to drink. Hey, Sam, you guys would be interested in a documentary on Netflix called Never Speak. Talks about how the Gawker trial, sale of Las Vegas Review, and how journalism under attack by rich elites.
Oh yeah, that was a fun film.
There was a revelation that the R. Kelly story was being shopped around to different outlets for months, and outlets were afraid to take it because of the Gawker stuff.
I'm of mixed minds about the R. Kelly story. On one hand, I loathe the idea of exposing the sexual slavery practiced by the ultra-wealthy. And then on the other hand, I don't like black people music. It's hard to figure out.
Okay. I think we get time.
Wait, I was just thinking on the way into work, because we talked about why would we talk about the R. Kelly story? And I was just thinking about how incredibly outrageously different this story would be if all of those girls were white. It would just be so different because the perception of their ages, whether they're of the age of consent or not, I'm sorry, but if it was a 17-year-old white girl, it would just be like she's too young. This isn't where she should be.
They're 17 years old?
Yeah.
I haven't heard nothing about this story other than what was vaguely talked about yesterday.
I mean,
to be totally honest with you, if R. Kelly was sitting in this room singing his most popular song,
you know what you'd say?
Who's that?
Are you a friend of Michael's? Hello.
Oh my gosh.
Hi, welcome to the office.
No, I mean that's.
I gotta go pick up my goddamn daughter and my shoes
Read
hurt.
the BuzzFeed story, and I mean it's not.
It's fucking mortifying. That's all. I mean, it's truly mortifying.
It's really. It's awful, but it just reminded me of the studies they've done where people, including police officers, where it's particularly relevant, perceive young black men to be
older,
several years older, like 4 years older than they are. It's a real problem. And as I was thinking about it, I was thinking, that is part of the problem with this story, which many people are outraged. But if they were white, they would be so much more outraged because they would think of that. They would think of their ages more,
right?
Not just the legality.
I had no idea they
the
were
age of
in
consent.
their teens.
Well, I mean, some of them have gotten older, and he's held on to them. But
I don't understand. Like they've been living at his house for years.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, he's got to. And also, also the first things that was reported years ago.
Is he married?
Was with
no
girls that were like.
He was married
13,
to
14.
Aaliyah. I think she was. How old was she, Michael? 14.
She
What?
I don't know
When
if she
they
was
started
that young.
dating?
Yeah, I think she might have been 14 when they started dating.
And he was
Yeah.
like 20
Yeah.
something.
Can I tell you, if Aaliyah was here singing,
she is
I would
dead,
have her.
Sam. She died in a tragic plane crash.
She did?
Yeah, really.
Wow, way to go, Sam!
I didn't know.
Nice having the Aaliyah material.
If
Aaliyah was here singing, it would be
We would
the
have a big
greatest
we
thing of
would
my
have
life.
a big scoop for
Yeah,
the show.
we
if
would be
Aaliyah
so
was
famous,
here,
but
yeah.
also it would be great because she wouldn't.
You know what I
have
would
died.
ask her? I would ask her, "Are you dead, Michael's friend?"
Oh my gosh.
All right.
Oh my gosh.
Pick a number, Michael, between a number including 5.
5-0.
Okay. Calling from a 503 area code. Who's this?
This is Grant from Oregon.
Grant, what's on your mind?
You guys brought up old Dana Rohrenbacher, or whatever his name is.
Right.
And I was wondering if you saw the clip of him talking about ancient civilizations on Mars in session in Congress.
I vaguely heard about that, but let's see if we can dig this up. Are you suggesting...
That's pretty amusing.
Are you suggesting there is no ancient civilization on the planet Mars? Is that your contention?
My contention is it's a silly question to ask in a session of Congress.
Okay.
At the least.
So you're not taking it seriously. Well,
You would,
No,
Jew.
not in the slightest.
all right. Well, let's go to the Congressman Dana Rohrabacher, who is in a NSA hearing, or talking to the NSA, and asked this question. Let's see what he thinks about it.
One last thought. I would hope that, again, I think the moon is close by, and whatever we can actually get a benefit out of going back there, we should, before you take the next step. However, the most important thing was if Mars, can I ask permission for 1 minute for this question? And that is, you have indicated that Mars was totally different thousands of years ago. Is it possible that there was a civilization on Mars thousands of years ago?
So the evidence is that Mars was different billions of years ago, not
Billions.
thousands of years ago.
Well, yes.
There would be there is no evidence that I'm aware of that.
Would you rule that out? That see, there's some people. Well, anyway.
I would say that is extremely unlikely.
Okay. Well, thank you all. Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks for the good job you're doing.
Yeah. Wow. That is pretty impressive. And I got to say, kudos to the NASA scientist who was able not to hysterically laugh out loud at that congressman, because he clearly.
Yeah, I think potentially the little kid in the background might have had something to do with that question, but maybe not.
No, the kid actually looks concerned. The kid's like, this is not going to play well.
Oh my God, Dad! He's asking my fake question. Appreciate the phone call.
When Grandpa gets clipped on YouTube. Why don't you go back to asking whether or not we should endorse ISIS?
All right, Michael, one more number. Ticket.
4-1.
4-1? Well, I asked
4.
for a number.
4.
Calling from 423 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Sam, it's Zach from Tennessee. How you doing, man?
Good, Zach. What's on your mind?
Well, I just wanted to run this by Michael. Does
Click.
he have a theme song for his show?
Lapaco has submitted some that are very good. We're working on it. Yeah.
Stephen Jenkins, he wants to get involved in politics. So let me just posit this to you real quick, okay?
Who's Stephen Zink?
Ready? Dude, okay, ready, go. Do, 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 Michael Brooks Show, do, 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 left is best, do, 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 Michael Brooks Show, smash the fash, Michael Brooks Show, trademark bullshit.
That's great.
That is pretty good.
And Sam, thank you, Michael. I appreciate it. I was nervous. And
Thank
Sam,
you.
are not a failed comedian. I was
just an
I just
unfunny
like
one.
to tell you that your turn as the it may not be PC today, but your turn on Spin City as the interpreter. I watched that live. I just remembered this when I bought the DVD, and you did the interpreter. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do know what you're talking about. I appeared on Spin City twice, and it was so good. I had a fun time.
Not a failed comedian. Not a failed comedian. Laughed my ass off. Pissed my pants. I mean, that was just
that was the pinnacle of my career, and that was it. It ended then, and so.
And so maybe I know that's probably not as good as Lapaco's, but just in case. And it gets Stephen Jenkins.
All right, Zach. Appreciate the call. It was good.
All right, love you guys. Thanks, Kelly.
Love you
good
too.
To see you.
Bye. All right, no more. No time
Can
for
we use
left.
that as a sound drop? Thanks, Keely. I like that. That
No
sounded.
more calls. Sorry, callers. Like 25 calls today. Snowblower Sam, hello. May I clear your driveway for a few shekels? All right. Now, Matt.
Jay.
Florico. If New York were to implement a single-payer system, it might give people a reason to relocate to New York and pump the tax base. Then other states would have to compete, much like they're starting to compete for marijuana money. Indeed. Kelly.
Oh.
Oh. Need another one.
B.
B. B. B. Oh, wait, what happened? It was right there. Wait a second. I got it. That was weird. I was just about to... it disappeared. Oh, there it is. Binder Dad. Note to Doug, the government's responsibility to provide health care to its citizens specifically mentioned in the opening paragraph of the Constitution with the phrase, promote the general welfare. Sounds like a guarantee to me. Note to Michael, love the Torgo. Michael.
Love the what? M.
MR Traveler. Hey, guys, I can't remember the name of the guy you interviewed on the Universal Federal Jobs Program, but I think you should spend some more time on the debate between his suggested program and a UBI, and think about trying to get Andy Stern, author of Raising the Floor on the show, to talk to you since it seems you favored the Universal Jobs Program over the UBI. Matt.
R.
Ridicule. Nixon-era culture war equals generation gap, plus women's movement, civil rights, black power, hippies, yippies, Kent State, etc. Today's culture war stems from the rise of right-wing media reach by orders of magnitude than anything that existed before. How many people would even know how very limp dick Ryan is back then, or Heritage Foundation used the Petri dishes? Woke Jay Leno needs to be a reoccurring character. Yes, please. And Fallon messing up Trump's hairdo is a classic compromat. Kelly.
T.
The DX Fool. Hi, folks. Saw New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman last night with Seth Meyers. He said his office has been investigating Trump since 2013, starting with the Trump University scandal. He also showed a cartoon of him as Malcolm McDowell's character from A Clockwork Orange that was in Jared Kushner's newspaper. Plus, surprise appearance by Mark Maron before the interview with actress Allison Brie. I didn't realize that. Maron's in town. Nice. Nice to get a call. And Michael.
F.
Flint. Yeah, I'm sure those singular society studies about broad governance theories are completely representative of the broader world. So we can definitely just say that since the study in Israel showed it didn't work with more than 100 people, there's no way it'll work anywhere, except societies differ in their values. They have for a long time. Socialism, communism, scope, entirely dependent on the people and leaders wanting to implement it. Countries like China has a collectivist heritage. Works even better when you attach self-interest to the country's well-being and development. And I will pick the final I am of the day. Nick, the liberal, to I Ammer, who asked about the importance of leftist rhetoric. It's important. When you're canvassing voters and don't have an effective rhetorical response to, can you cut my taxes, then you are ceding the tax argument to the Republicans and have lost a 4-vote household in the deal. See you tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth